It's not often people admit that their operation was feather-bedded and overstaffed. Yours was.
Of course. I'm sorry it was. And they were all good people. We had too many good people. I think I've said that many times. And that was the first job that I felt that I had to produce this efficient transportation. I had to do to produce the efficient transportation we talked about earlier.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Dr. Bandeen. You're talking about profits of $136 million, and yet
Yes.
you've just signed agreements with the UTU to lay off one man in the running trades. One man out of a three-man crew.
A four-man crew, yes.
Four-man crew, pardon me, in all your running trades.
Well, pretty well all, yes.
Safely.
Didn't get that?
How can he operate safely?
I don't think that's a question anymore. It was looked at in one of the arbitrations back 3 or 4 years ago. I think Justice Hall was in charge, and we negotiated this with the unions. They are, after all, they're the ones that are fully familiar with the operation, and they're never going to agree to something that's going to create a safety problem.
Just a minute, is this back to the old kind of fireman business?
Well, it's the next step beyond the fireman. This is taking the brakeman off the tail end of freight trains and reducing the crew from 4 to 3. And we just signed an agreement in Eastern Canada within the last 10 days, and in Western Canada we did it last fall.
And this also includes the yard crews.
Yard crews were well advanced before that, and they fall under another agreement. But we had already been reducing the yard crews for the last 3 or 4 years. So this now is the road crews that we've got the most recent agreement with. We've agreed to split the savings with these people over 10 years on a 25-75 basis, 25 to them, 75 to us, and they're setting up a fund to be able to compensate people who are dislocated or have...
You're paying 25% of the savings on the reduction of the crews to a union-controlled fund?
Yes.
To the specific operating union, running trades union?
UTU.
This is a share of technology, a share of technological advance.
That's right. You see, we really couldn't do that until we had the signaling system, until we had the hot box detectors. These are technical terms if you wish.
No, use them.
And so that we could provide the safety that the caller is asking about. And the unions don't dispute this now. They've agreed with us. And this was a voluntarily signed agreement.
I presume nobody was laid off, and this will be taken care of by attrition.
Over a period of years. We'll try to speed up and influence some of the people to take earlier retirement and use some of the money that in this fund to induce people to early retirement, but the rest will be attrition.
But what happens to your 75% of the savings?
And hopefully it goes to pay for the hot box detectors and the other technological changes.
Very good question. Anything else like that we should know about?
Yes, what about in the yard? Okay, the radio that we'll be carrying in the yard are cumbersome. Like I work for CP, and they're going to be doing the same thing. CN has already done it. But in the yard, we've got a radio, okay?
Yeah.
And we've got 5 to 6 crews working together.
Yes.
All going to be on the same frequency.
Yeah.
And it's going to do away with signal lamps, which we use now.
Yes.
Safe method of moving cars in the yard. What's going to happen there? We're jumping on and off of cars as they're moving, on and off of trains. We're carrying a radio over our shoulders. We're trying to compress a microphone, telling an engineer to stop. Okay, we've got to give out a number of the engine, and then using proper signals to tell him to stop.
Yes, I'm aware of this problem. I'm not aware of what kind of radios Canadian Pacific uses in their yards, but I do know that we're moving towards lighter, more compact units, and I haven't heard a complaint from our yardmen on this.
Thanks for the call, though. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Bandeen, this isn't a very portentous question, except as a prospective customer.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I'm always interested in prospective customers.
Very fine. Well, we're over 65, my wife and I, and years ago, I've worked on the railway, incidentally, for 43 years in the mail car.
Yes.
CNR, CPR, and so
Were
on.
you a CN employee or a post office?
Now, I love traveling on trains, but you are forcing me to travel on an airplane. Now, I used to go from here to Brandon and take a bedroom on account of the age of my wife. She needs that.
Yeah, but now you've got VIA. Will that not fill the bill?
Just a moment now, please, Mr. Webster. Do that. Now, it's costing me $100 each way for a bedroom from here to Brandon. That is dearer than I would have to pay at the Bayshore Inn for 2 nights, and no food. We used to get food included in those. So I have figured this all out on the plane and the railway, and I'm going to Toronto about 3 or 4 months now, and I'm forced to take the plane. Now, could you please explain to me why this will be so?
Well, I start off by saying that all the rail passenger services are operated by VIA and none by us at the moment. But to go back to your question, the transcontinental trains, which the western part of them, which run from Montreal and Toronto to Vancouver, are, I believe, in 1979 going to lose about $100 million. And they have charges such as you suggested for bedrooms and for transportation. But again, and it's just from memory, I think that for every dollar that you spend in revenue, it's costing somebody $4 to $5 in expenses. And so I don't know how you can complain. You're getting a bargain. If you were charged the cost of it, you would be paying 4 to 5 times what you're suggesting.
The fact is that passenger rail traffic on the old basis is not economic anymore.
Well,
It's not commercially viable, no.
You mean to tell me, Doctor, that the CNR can't compete with the planes now as far as the cost program goes?
No, but I think that the competition isn't exactly fair. The airlines get an airport built by the government. They get the signals, and the controllers are all government employees. They don't pay for those.
In other words, if Air Canada and CPA had to carry the full cost of the ground facilities, nobody would fly.
Well, it would certainly change the economics of flying.
Thank you very much indeed. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Yes, sir. I just tell Mr. Webster not to push the button. I'm a 70-year-old female, and I was wondering when did CN take over CP?
When did we take over CP?
Yeah.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, I don't know. I'd be amazed to find
I
out.
was wondering.
No, ma'am, CN has not taken over CP. You're a wee bit mixed up this morning, I think.
I was just wondering because I used to be a beau, you know.
A what?
A beau.
A beau?
Beau.
Oh, no, my dear. It's nice of you, but I'm going to have to push the button. It's not...
I was wondering because we used to get the 1010 out.
Which 1010? That's before your time.
I think so, yes.
Called the Seaboard Express.
There weren't many women who rode the rods in the 30s.
I did it. I wondered if...
Love, I'll talk to you another time. Really, you're a delightful person, and I love you dearly, but I'm going to have to push the button.
Okay, my love.
Okay, my dear. Last call to Bob Bandeen. Is that a relative of yours?
No, I thought it was a relative of yours. She knew you very well anyway.
No accent.
No accent.
Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Bandeen.
You're the last call. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Bandeen?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Bandeen, I was listening to your comments about...
Your television set is up and it causes instant mental breakdown.
Yes, okay, I'll...
Right. Thank you. Start again. Mr. Bandeen, you were listening to him.
Yeah.
Come on.
I was listening to your comments. You were saying that the employment situation for the employees at CN, I've heard the last few calls saying that some of them are fearing layoff positions, and I've been listening to you, and I haven't been really impressed at all for any future for any CN employees at all. Now, I'm an unemployed man. I've been looking for work for the last 6 months, and I don't expect I'll find anything for quite some time. And I haven't heard anything from you at all. It's going to encourage any enlightenment for me to get a job. I'd like to hear your comment on that.
Well, I'm sympathetic with your problem because I don't think you're unique, as you know, but in having the problem, I think I was referring to a young man who was employed with the CN, and he wondered if there was a future, and I wanted to guarantee him that there was, because the CN has been growing over the last 5 or 6 years. We anticipate a growth in our business in the foreseeable future. There are going to be technological changes which will allow us to be more efficient and reduce the number of people that are required to move a certain amount of traffic. But I can see that the growth of traffic is going to more than offset this, and that we're actually will be keeping the number of people we have or expanding, particularly in the railway side of our business over the next few years. Now, how that will affect an individual such as yourself who has not been associated with the railway and are currently looking for a job, I'm really not in a good position to tell you. But if other firms, such as ourselves, are looking forward to an expansion of the employment or stability of their existing one, then this should create future job opportunities for people such as yourself.
Mind you, I must admit it was a good call from an unemployed man, because you've been talking about efficiency with the economy and all the rest of it, and for this year to be congratulated, but with what's the unemployment rate now? Something like 8.2%.
Yes.
The prospects in the rest of the nation ain't that good. Anyway, my thanks to you, Dr. Bandeen, for a pretty lucid explanation of the prospects and the futures, apart from your old friend, the Beau, of the Canadian National Railway. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Take a break. Well, for the first time in a long while, I've got time to sit here and take some telephone calls for you. I miss the old free-for-alls, you know, from time to time, because sometimes it puts me back in perspective. As you know, I can get seized with some particular line or comment or idea, and I go on ad nauseam until who knows what kind of effect I might be having on people. But I thought, broadly speaking, that our friend Bandeen was quite interesting this morning. My friend Earl White brought me in some notes at the very last moment about the unfunded liabilities of CN, and that's not the thing which, I think that's a matter for arguing and fighting between accountants. It's nice to see a president of a Crown corporation who's quite willing to say, yes, he cleaned out some feather-baited stuff, and yes, he's trying to do this and that, and yes, the government did take over $800 million of the debt in return for some shares, so therefore it's making profits. I haven't hammered too much, I haven't come back to you too much on the Varhog affair, but I'm going to use that, Fred. But I'm going to have a free-for-all between now and the end of the program. But I want to thank you very much for an immense amount of correspondence with which I cannot really cope, except in certain circumstances. And so I want to give you, just from time to time, so that you don't forget, the response of you, the jury, touching the death of Nancy May Varhog. And these letters that I use are real letters with names and with addresses, at least the location. I don't give the detailed address. And I want you to just take a deep breath for a minute and look at this letter, which is up now. It's from Richmond. I'm the mother of 3 sons struck down on bicycles by an impaired driver in Richmond in April 1976. My 10-year-old son was taken to Richmond General. My other 2 sons, aged 12 and 13, were taken to Vancouver General. My 13-year-old lived 4 days, and I was told there was no hope for him because of the brain damage. I was asked to donate his kidneys for a double transplant, which I did, as I felt this is what he would have wanted. My husband was killed 2 years prior to my son's death under similar circumstances. I hope this will help Mrs. Danchak and many more that have to face this in the future. We suffer too, not only the guilty party, signed M. Gower. In that particular accident, the police recommendation was criminal negligence causing death, secondly, impaired driving, and thirdly, dangerous driving. Criminal negligence was not laid. On the second charge, the driver got 14 days in jail. On the third charge, she got 4 months in jail. She served a very small portion, my understanding, of the 4 months. But there were 4 boys on bicycles altogether. 3 were Mrs. Gower's sons. 2 of the boys were killed. The message that I'm trying to leave with you is that there must be some measure of restraint on people drinking and driving, a real measure of restraint. And my position hasn't changed a bit. In fact, it gets stronger on it all the time. Where you are in a blameworthy position involved in a fatal accident, where alcohol is involved, your right to drive should be stopped, if not for life, for a long, long time. I'm not saying prison is the answer. I shouldn't really get into orbit on this, but I was talking to some of my legal friends yesterday. And one of the problems seems to be, not with the police so much. I think, generally speaking, the police who cover these things have the response to take some action. But it gets in the hands of the lawyers. And the lawyers say, there's not enough evidence for criminal negligence causing death, so therefore don't charge anything at all. They forget that those close to the person killed looks with amazement at the ineffectualness of the law and says, walked away without a loss of a point, walked away without ever having to appear in court, walked away without even being charged without due care and attention. There's too common an attitude in the, and I say this with some knowledge, throughout the entire prosecutorial system in British Columbia, that if you can't get the big charge, don't charge anything. And that, in my humble view, is wrong. I believe there are many times when you haven't got the evidence to charge criminal negligence, motor manslaughter, even dangerous driving. But the driver must be made to realize that in some way, with alcohol, he was very much to blame. Okay, free for all between, take a break now. And I'll take any subject at all between now and the time we break at 10:30. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, first amen on your drinking driving comment, Jack. It's too bad I didn't get a chance to...
Okay, enough of that. Talk about something else.
Yeah, it's too bad I didn't get a chance to get through to Dr. Bandeen, but I had a couple of questions on his $136 million profit.
Well, he was pretty frank on it.
Well, I didn't get a chance to ask him the questions, and these are the questions I was going to ask him. Is the CN passenger train is now called Via Rail, and I understand there's a federal subsidy to Via Rail, and I'm not absolutely sure, but I understand it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million.
Yeah, there's a loss projected of 250 odd.
200, well, there I'm only 150 million out. So the other one is here in BC, we get no federal subsidy on our Trans-Canada Highway ferry service on the East Coast.
Oh, don't go into... oh, yeah, you're back to the old business again. Yeah, but who wants to talk about that this morning?
Well, I don't want to talk about it, but I was wondering if he knew what the subsidy that the CN receives from as a subsidy on the East Coast. And
oh, yeah, on their ferries.
On their ferry service.
Yeah, I should have asked him that. You're right. I'm sorry I didn't. He's gone. Thanks all the same. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was wondering at some time if you could possibly look into why Cablevision manages such poor reception. I really enjoy watching your program when I can watch it.
Where do you live?
I live in Port Moody.
Which Cablevision are you on?
Coquitlam.
Coquitlam?
Yes.
Is it called Coquitlam Cablevision?
Many, many times.
And you mean to say you can't see me with great clarity?
No, like I've kept tabs for the last 2 weeks just so I could, just so I could have some data. And yesterday I missed out 20 minutes because it cut out. The day before it was a half an hour, and today it was 15 minutes.
In Coquitlam Cablevision?
Yeah.
Have you phoned them?
I have phoned them in the 7 years that I've been living here, I have phoned and complained and complained. People in the area have complained, and just nothing is being done about it.
What's the name of the head man there?
Pardon?
What's the name of the head man?
I can't remember his name on it. I've been trying to think of it all day.
I'll tell you what, I'll give them a call.
Great. I really appreciate it.
What street are you on?
I'm on Angela Drive.
Which drive?
Angela?
Angela.
Right.
Thanks, love. Bye. Why did I say I'd give them a call? I've got to phone up now and say, look, I got a list on an Angela Drive who misses me for 20 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster. I couldn't get on yesterday morning. And there's a problem I have. I'm entitled to the good driver discount, but in November I had my front license plate stolen, and the police advised me to get new plates.
Oh, you'll get it on that. If you had your license plate stolen, I will guarantee you that you will still be entitled, all things being equal, to the safe vehicle driver discount. And if you have any trouble, we'll give you somebody to call. If it's merely a question of your license being stolen and having it replaced with different plates, you'll get your vehicle discount.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
And just go into an agent and say, hey, Webster told me, and see what happens and phone me back. I mean, that's common sense. Name of goodness. Where from?
Good morning, Jack.
Cranbrook, go ahead.
Good morning, Jack.
Yes.
One of the topical things happening today is the federal government's proposal to decriminalize marijuana. Are you planning a program to discuss this? Because I think by and large people are not very well informed on that.
Well, I sometimes am hesitant about these things. I'm such an old reactionary.
Really? Yeah, I guess that about you, but however, it's going to affect us all. And
I think it's a damnable thing,
but
if you want me to be honest. But there I go again. I got a letter today, I'll show you it tomorrow, telling me off good and proper for being far too intense about things. Well, let me say it modestly. I think the decriminalization of marijuana and hash, don't forget, will in effect and in fact legalize it and increase the use of it twofold, threefold, fourfold, as has happened in jurisdictions where they have done the same sleazy thing.
But Jack, how can we have a sort of a two-way system here. I don't myself, I've never smoked a marijuana cigarette, but I don't consider it more dangerous than alcohol. And what is our attitude and the government's attitude?
All right, supposing we discover another substance today, which we'll call X, which makes you happy, makes you fuzzy, affects your judgment, impairs your vision, impairs your walking. That could be alcohol or pot or hash or whatever. Should we legalize it too? Maybe we should just decriminalize everything and let the half-wits go down the tube.
Jack, could you tell me what the crow's nest rate is?
Yes. It's a subsidy paid for. It's an arbitrarily imposed rate imposed on the railroad companies by an agreement of 100 years ago and also 1925, which they've got to carry certain things to the coast at a loss.
Who pays for this subsidy?
The railways.
The railway does.
That's what they tell us now. I don't know.
The government doesn't give the railway a subsidy.
Well, it gives them other. It has in the past given them many other subsidies.
Yeah, like half of Vancouver.
Well, you wouldn't have had Vancouver if you hadn't given the CPR half the country.
Vancouver had been built across the Falls Creek, wouldn't it?
No, it might have been Vancouver, the United States of America. No comments. Much obliged. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning, Jack.
Yes.
I just called up about accidents and people getting off scot-free. Over to Cambion Marine, not quite a year ago, and somebody hit me in the rear end just as I was pulling into the curb. They kept on going, run the red light at Cambion Marine.
Look, you weren't killed, were you?
Pardon?
You weren't killed?
No, I was lucky.
Normal hazard. Was he charged?
No, she had 4 charges against her, and went to court 3 times, and she still got off scot-free.
Oh, well. No explaining that. Let's concentrate on the fatalities. Go ahead, please. Hello?
Hello?
Yep.
Yes, please, Mr. Webster.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you when we're going to discuss about workmen's compensation board. My father is hurt.
No, we're not going to have a full-scale program on Workmen's Compensation Board. Workmen's Compensation Board, despite the odd problem I've had with them, is one of the most efficient organizations in British Columbia. 97 or 96% of claims are fixed without any problem. There are recurring problems, and if a man has a good union, that union can fight the problem through the end. The people who suffer in Compensation Board are those people in non-union plants who do not have proper representation, where the employer does not want to admit or give evidence that there has been an accident in his plant. Many of these things involve back injuries, head injuries, degeneration so-called, medical appeal boards, medical review boards, and I find by and large the Compensation Board does not a bad job. On individual cases, they have counsels and advocates whom you can go and see who will help you. In the final analysis, you can get a legal aid lawyer. It's a tough one, but there's no way that I can take on any kind of full-scale look at the Compensation Board. No way, much as I'd like to. I'll talk to you off the air sometime, not this morning, about the particular problem, and all I can do in compensation is give you broad advice. Because people send me files this deep, and nobody can understand them. Hold on. Take a break. Well, Linda.
Tomorrow we have John Bruin.
Oh, that's the BCGEU guy, the lawyer, used to be
Lawyer.
president of the NDP, coming over on some specific thing axe he wants to grind. And
Len Bawtrey.
I think Len Bawtrey will be first off the top of the morning. I said that Brian's out working on some stuff too. That's on the Barbara Wallace business, Agriculture Committee. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. precisely.